This is one of the things that I say often to people. Like, if your employee went off sick tomorrow, who's going to do their job and how are they going to find out how to do it? So when you're writing your standard operating procedures, and I don't want you, the business owner, to be writing them, I want the people that are executing to be writing them.
Welcome to the Adriana Ostapenko podcast. I'm here with Megan. Thanks for joining. I know we have met a little while back and have connected. And I feel like every time I talk to you, we're talking the same language.
Yeah.
Have a very similar message. So I'm very excited about this episode. I'm very excited to dive into what does it mean to own a business in real estate. So can't wait for that. Thank you so much for joining. I'd love for you to tell me a little bit about yourself and what your primary focus is.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me today. I'm really excited to be here and speak with your audience. So my name is Meghan Hubner. I am located in Whistler, British Columbia. I am a business consultant specializing with real estate investors. I spent 12 years in the corporate world, and then I kind of feel like my 20-year-old self knew my 40-year-old self better, because when I jumped back into entrepreneurship, I looked back and I actually have a degree in entrepreneurship. So I obviously knew that I was interested in it in my 20s, but then I went ahead and spent all this time in the corporate world, which gave me amazing skills and experiences. But I'm thrilled to be back in entrepreneurship now.
I love that. It's so funny because in my past, I feel I
Yeah.
want to say past life, but I did something so different. It's still, I can see it so clearly how it connects in some ways, but
Mm-hmm.
also how like there was always a knowing somewhere that it was gonna lead me to something else. So I can relate to that. So you're just telling me a little bit about what does a business consultant, specialize in real estate investors, what does that mean?
Absolutely. So the way I always explain it is that I always say, I will never tell you when to buy, sell, or flip a property. That is the job of your real estate coach. I am not a real estate coach, but I am a business consultant that specializes on working with real estate investors. And so what I do is I will help you build a solid business foundation to understand your business so well that you will know inside and out what your portfolio is doing at that point in time. And then you can go to your real estate coach and say, hey, this property is underperforming because I know my business so well. What should I do with it now? How can I create a strategy for it? Is it time to buy, sell, or flip? And so what I do with business owners, I worked with multiple different industries I had previous to just sort of focusing in on real estate. And we take a look at your business as it relates to accounting and finance, sales and marketing, and then human resources, and then operations. And a lot of times, I know there's so many moving parts when it comes to entrepreneurship. You buy one building or you buy one property and boom, you've got a business. But a lot of people are still kind of catching up to that idea around actually running their property or their portfolio as a straight business. And so when I take a look at, what's happening in the large corporations and things, that's how they run a business too. They take a look at, the accounting finance piece, and we take a look at everything from how much is that property costing you to where are those numbers flowing? Are they in the right bank accounts? Do you have a QuickBooks Online set up? And then when you understand your numbers, now you can make decisions around sales and marketing. What's our strategic plan for next year? Where can we make a spend? How can we evaluate that spend? Is it even worth it? Who's doing the marketing and then actually closing the sales? And when we relate it to real estate investing, of course, we're looking for investors or we're looking for joint venture partners. And so a lot of times we think of it's only a product or a service that you're selling, but in actual fact, there's lots of moving pieces in your real estate business that you're actually selling. And then from there, we say, okay, now that we understand those components, who's going to execute on this? Do we have a VA helping us? Do we have a marketing team helping us? Do I have a bookkeeper on staff? And then we take a look at human resources. And you might say, I'm an individual, one person owning my business, but you still have a team around you, right? Your power team of people that are still really affecting. And so those are the people that are on your HR team, essentially. And then we take a look at the operations. And now that we have understood our finances, we've created a marketing and sales plan, we know who's going to execute on it. Now we take a look at the operations. What does the investor journey look like? What does the JV journey look like? What does it look like to pull through a property from start to finish and then refinance? Where are the duplicatable tasks that we can just hit repeat, and actually create forms around them? That's how we apply it to the real estate industry.
What is the biggest difference between a real estate investor mindset and business owner mindset?
Good question. Real estate investor versus a business owner. A lot of times, and this is again from my personal experience, I find that a lot of people, especially when they get started in real estate investing, are doing it on the side of their desk, right? They're still working a 9 to 5. And some people are always going to work a 9 to 5 because they love it. So it's demanding, right? And a lot of times I find when people are thinking, oh, I'm going to open a business, they're in it, right? They're full bore in it. They're doing all the business things. But I find a lot of times real estate investors will say, oh yeah, it's something I do on the side of the rest of my life. And so not maybe recognizing that they need to start making strategic business decisions.
I found that for myself, and I think I
Mm-hmm.
shared my story with you before. When we scaled the portfolio to a certain level, I realized, first of all, I felt tapped out, which is
Totally.
like because I was doing everything,
Mm-hmm.
all like the nitty gritty, all the details, all like being in the tools and
Yeah.
doing every piece of it. And I realized it was very hard to scale. Like I didn't know how to scale, but I also realized how much I didn't know. Like I knew, and people had told me, like, okay, you have to build. I knew I had to build systems and processes to scale, but had no idea how.
Yeah.
And had to figure. I hired a business coach at the time, and this is what the value that somebody like you brings to the table. And I had to shift my mindset because my thought processes every day were really in like, okay, this is how I call a tenant or screen
Mm-hmm.
somebody to like, this is how I build a system to be able to get tenants in. So it was just a shift in how to, what my mind was thinking about every day,
Yeah.
and a shift in what do I need to create here. So when you start by, when a real estate investor realizes, hey, I have a business
Yeah.
now and I have to operate it, you start with the finance part of it, which is a big deal. And not a lot of us don't really know, like, what are the components of finance in a business? Can you dive in a little bit of
Yeah.
how do you get them structured on the finance side?
Yeah, I like to take a look at the finances in three main areas. So I always feel like the starting point is that okay, you've got your one door, you've got your one property, you've got a couple properties, etc. Okay, let's take a look at what's happening there. Do we know what our fixed costs are on a monthly basis? Do we know what our variable costs are on a monthly basis? Do we know what our fixed business costs are? Right? I'm not talking about your property taxes and your internet bill. I'm talking about your Canva subscription and your Zoom Pro, right? Like these are the things that are just costing you to run the business. So understanding all of those costs first is where we start. Then we kind of back up and say, okay, how are things routing? Everyone investor seems to have a different take, whether they should have two business account or whether they should have two bank accounts for each property, one operating, one expenses, whether they should have one operating versus expenses, whether they have one account per property. Like everyone has a different thing, but are those bank accounts being routing to the right place? Are your automatic payments coming out of the right accounts? Like even just simple things like that, because a lot of times when you start throwing things in the pile, you don't do that heavy lifting to start with. You're like, I'll just clean it up later, or the bookkeeper will clean it up for me. So we try and like understand, where's the money going to, where is it coming from, what are your fixed, what's your variable costs, do you have accounting software, are you using Wave, have you implemented QuickBooks Online, etc. So that's kind of the first piece. And then the second piece I say is, once that's all routed, let's take a look at bookkeeping. Is this something that you need to be doing, or is this something that you need to start hiring out? If you are looking for a bookkeeper, do you have someone who is understanding the investment space? And so we kind of pair you with what you need at that point in time. And then the third piece I find is the accounting piece. A lot of times most people are going to send that out because they're not going to do all the accounting all the way through. But if you haven't done step one and step two, it's a lot more work for the accountant, and they actually can't pull through what you need every year. And so that's kind of where we start with the finance piece. And just a lot of times when you're scaling, a lot of those things get missed.
100%. As you know, I own a virtual agency that does
Yeah,
exactly that. We logistically help real estate investors get set up, and finance is one of the components. We do bookkeeping, and
totally.
the biggest is that they come in and they're way behind. They haven't done any like they don't even know how to reconcile, which is
Yeah,
fair. They're not trained bookkeepers. Like,
totally.
how would you know?
Yeah.
How to reconcile your accounts, how to make sure everything is flowing to the right corporations. Because as real estate investors, a lot of us have several
Multiple.
corporations, several
Yep.
businesses at the end of the day, and they all need to flow a certain way and expense a certain way, and things that you wouldn't know if you're not, a trained bookkeeper or accountant. You do
Yeah.
need the help of somebody that knows what they're doing to be able to keep you on track. And the sooner the better. I find bookkeeping is the lowest hanging fruit, the simplest. It's very worth the cost to keep you
Oh
organized.
my gosh.
And
Yeah.
all of that will allow you to scale.
Yeah. Because you'll know so well. I remember the first time we talked actually, and you're like, I created what I couldn't find. And I was like, oh, it's brilliant. It's exactly what I hear is people are struggling with social media. They're struggling with bookkeeping. They're struggling with all these little tasks because they're running this business. And so they went ahead and created this amazing agency that offers exactly what you were looking for.
Exactly, because there's just so many different areas to the
Yeah.
business, and that's we focus on those four areas. Like I didn't know how to hire, how to train, how to create a system or process. What I realized is systems don't create systems, people create systems. And I
Yeah.
wasn't it. I did
Absolutely.
the
And
best
it's
that I could, but it was just not
probably not
my
your skill
strong
set,
suit.
right?
Yeah.
This is the other thing is that people are stumbling around. Like, let's use hiring as a perfect example, right? I hired a VA and I had her start, but I was the sales manager, right, for a very large company. So I was the one always doing the work, overseeing the entire team, right? Making sure that strategic sales plans were in place and they were actionable, etc. But I never had anyone that I was like, hey, can you help me? Can you do this? Can you do this? And so even when my VA started, I was not maximizing her as much as I should have been until I kind of sat down and did a strategy session. I was like, okay, wait a minute. I need to shift my thinking and I need to say, okay, I'm not going to do these things anymore because we get stuck in that rut of habits. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to keep doing this. And like, now I'm like, boom, 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 so much more efficient with my VA.
Number one predictor that we have experienced so far, if you will be successful with your VA, is how much control are you willing to relinquish? That's it. That's the number one predictor because people are so into the habit of doing things a
Mm-hmm.
certain way and wanting things a certain way. The better you are at delegating, the better you are at letting go and letting somebody
Yeah.
else kind of, they're going to come in with their own voice and their own style. And yes, there's standards and there's things that you will like, this is how I want things done. But at the end of the day, I want my VA to have some freedom and flexibility to kind of create what they're doing. Because like, if you're the one that's going to be managing the system, I told my VA, just going through this massive organization on my drive and my
I
systems.
love
I'm
it.
like, if you're the one that's going to be there every day finding documents, I don't want to go in there. I just message her and I'm like, hey, can you send this mortgage statement to the lender? Right. I'm not going to go in there. So I'm like, you do it, do it your way. I want to know where everything is. She creates SOPs. She shows me,
Exactly.
we talk it through, but I'm like, you take ownership. And I find that that's the best relationship is being able to give the vision to your
Mm-hmm.
VA and to your team members of what you're wanting to accomplish. You give them clear directions, what the purpose is,
Yep.
timelines. But you know what? Let them run with it because they're going to bring their own skill set to the table and create something that, it wasn't for you to create in the first place.
And a lot of times too, I think of their professional development, right? I want this person to be well invested in my business for the long period of time. So I want them to remain engaged in their role and work on growing their own professional development.
100%. I also don't like micromanaging. I don't have the time. I'm
Yeah.
not here to micromanage anybody, right? So
Yeah.
it's ultimately like setting the vision, the timelines, the goals, and then like the accountability piece of touching base where things are at. How are
Mm-hmm.
we moving it forward? How do we problem solve something as it comes up? There's a
Yeah.
challenge here. We're noticing like a gap over there. How do we solve? Is it adding another person? Is it adding a different system? And just like we're so blessed at this time and age with AI and
Oh my
technology that
gosh.
we can automate so many things. And I challenge my team and I say, I want you to create and think of how do you create any system or process in 3 to 5 steps tops with
It's a
as
good benchmark.
little manual manipulation in between. So
Yep.
you're starting the process, you're ending the process, but as little manual like manipulation in between. And that set us up for, a really, really good mindset to create systems and processes for the businesses.
Absolutely. I mean, even just as an example, we have with one of our cornerstone multifamily, with one of our corporations, we have one person who's really excelled at project management that we're using at ClickUp, right? So he basically let's take that task that you're duplicating over and over. And so we've got an offer in on a property and that property gets dragged from the deal analysis section down to the accepted offer or offer entered. And then everyone on the team gets notified, right? He doesn't have to go and create an email to say, hey, you guys, we've got an offer in, right? It's all automatically populated. Everyone gets notification. They see the town, they start working on their task.
That's perfect. Exactly. I love that. We challenge ourselves with the same philosophy every day. And how streamlined can we make things? So we talked about the finance piece.
Yeah.
Where do you want your clients to end up? Like, what's the goal by the time you're done your consulting with
Yeah.
them on the finance side of things?
On the finance side of things is that they understand their business, they understand their numbers, and they have created a system of how they can continue. So if they are basically, they have one spreadsheet that they're analyzing multifamily properties in, they know where that spreadsheet is, they know what the process is to duplicate that spreadsheet, add a new address to a new property, that triggers, so and so to start doing data entry on it, like all of those repeatable tasks, as well as making sure that all the income and things are being routed the same place. If we're taking that property on, what is the standard operating procedure say about who sets up the bank accounts, who's managing that property every single month, those types of things. So we want to make sure that they have a solid foundation there. And then that's going to take us into the sales and marketing component.
Organization is like so key, and it's just like one of the top things that we do. We usually, when we start working with a new client, we spend the first little bit just getting organized.
Yeah.
Where is everything? Who's doing what? Like, who's responsible for what? Just to get like things
Yeah.
into place. Because for a lot of business owners, they're really busy doing business. They're selling,
Mm-hmm.
they're setting the tone, they're scaling the business, they're creating partnerships. They don't have the time or the skill set to be working on the day-to-day, admin, I'm going to call it tasks.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of what we do when we come in at first place, just getting organized. Also, a huge learning that I had, as you know, with my hand injury recently, but it was kind of almost back to back with turnkey specifically. My business partner is pregnant, which we're very excited about, but she went
Amazing.
through some really tough sickness. And all of a sudden, she did a lot of the day-to-day operations. All of a sudden, we're like, okay, this is a really good challenge for the team of like, if it's not her doing it, how are things getting done? Who's initiating the
Absolutely.
processes?
Well, this is one of the things that I say often to people. Like, if your employee went off sick tomorrow, who's going to do their job and how are they going to find out how to do it? So when you're writing your standard operating procedures, and I don't want you, the business owner, to be writing them, I want the people that are executing to be writing them. So when they write that standard operating procedure, right, I need to basically be able to come into that position tomorrow and do that job for that person. So if Meghan was moving into the business tomorrow, and where is she going to file like everything, where is she going to find this document? Is there a link directly to that document that you need to fill out? Is there a guide on how to fill that document out, right? Like making sure that it's really detailed so that I can walk into your business and I can change things. Because the other thing that happens too is that maybe from a professional development point of view, that person leaves and goes to work for a big REIT, and so now you're out that valuable information. Well, if that employee or contract worker has not stored that information for you, you're at zero again. And chances are high you don't even know how to do that.
100%. Not being able to, like, if somebody just like is gone and has
Yeah.
such a huge component of your business and their information is all in their head, how do you continue to operate? So that's what
Mm-hmm.
systems and processes allow you to do. It's like everything is physically documented. There is literally a step by step, just by creating workflows on your CRM, you're creating a step by
Yep.
step process of what needs to happen every stage of the way. And then knowing where everything is. That's the organizational piece. That's passwords, that's documents that you need to find.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a textbook client recently where she had someone go out on leave basically within 24 hours. But she was so well prepared that she was like, okay, this person's going on leave. Here's the job description for that person. Here are the standard operating procedures of the job description that person does. And I also have a database of qualified people that I have already interviewed sitting in the wings. She had someone in within 72 hours.
It's incredible.
Textbook. It was perfect.
That's incredible. That's the huge value of like having those conversations. And again, going back to the difference between an investor mindset and a business mindset is what are the conversations that you're having? What are you thinking about, right? Yes, we have to think about the next property to buy, but that's not all you're thinking about. You're talking about these things with the finance perspective specifically. When I had the accident and I was in hospital getting surgery done, I was medicated. Like, there's just a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
It happened to be around the time we had to make payments to a lot of our investors. And I'm the one that takes care of that.
Yeah.
And it was a matter of sending a couple of text messages to my team members and say, hey, this is where everything is. Can you please go ahead and make these payments? If I hadn't taken the time to get organized and build a system around it, how would they know who to pay, how much to pay, what's happening, where bank account informations are, all of that.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good point, especially since you had such a, serious accident that did take you out.
Which happens, and that's really the
It's
point of that.
life. Yeah.
Let's move on to HR a little bit.
Yeah.
What are your top like advice on getting like hiring and training and getting people started on
Yeah.
your team?
Yeah, for sure. As far as HR goes, is that the first thing I find, like a lot of people haven't even hired yet. They might not have a full-time person. They may not have a contract person. They might not even have a VA yet. And that's totally fine. We start there. We basically start with taking a look at your high value task and your low value tasks, and then creating a job description for that first hire from those low value tasks. And then as far as that kind of component, like I would say, go back to your accounting finance piece. Are you good at bookkeeping? No, you're not. It's probably an area you need to outsource, right? Do you like sales or do you like marketing? Because those are very different personality types, right? You walk into any organization, I would say sales on this side and a marketing team over here. And I was like, whoa, you guys are different, right? I'm team sales all the way. I love it. Other people, it makes them cringe. I don't love doing the marketing, like sitting there trying to create something that looks good, not my jam. So when I realized that, right, you take a look at where your strengths and weaknesses are. I'm like, I'm not going to hire someone to sell for me. I love selling. I'm definitely going to hire someone to manage my social media because I do not love that. And so you take a look at where your strengths and weaknesses are, and then that's going to kind of give you the first couple people that you want to start bringing into your business. I absolutely love contract workers because you can hire them for 10 hours, 50 hours a month, depending on what you need. You can do sliding scale. You don't, it goes back to those fixed business costs, right? Are you ready to take on a fixed salary in your business, or is there still too much variability every single month, right? Especially if you're running like a short-term rental business, right? You've got highs and lows. And so really understanding like, okay, where's my skill set? What can I start looking at? And just start small. Start with 5 hours, start with 10 hours a month in some of those areas that are not your wheelhouse. And then you can start pulling people through. But the biggest thing you have to do is, number one, what are they going to do? Because if you're not giving them a clear job description, they're going to sit there on their thumbs for 5 to 10 hours a month, 5 to 10 hours a week, waiting for direction, right? And that's the difference between employee and entrepreneur. As the entrepreneur, you've got to create that whole thing. An employee, I just got a lovely job description from HR department. I'm going to go out and execute these tasks. But you are that department, so you need to create what they're doing.
So many questions for you. Do you use any like personality test or questionnaire to help a client sort of define what their main strengths are and therefore what they need to outsource first?
I find a lot of times people have a pretty good idea of what they are, but there are a lot of frameworks that I worked with in the past, without a doubt. Like, I like the Four Tendencies a lot by Gretchen Rubin. I've worked with Desk in the past as well. So there's lots of different things. So a lot of times people come in and they have an understanding, or maybe they're working on human design and they know where their strengths and their weaknesses are. If they don't, then I would definitely recommend something that kind of vibes with them as to how they're going to resonate, but really good to understand your own personality type and then the hires that you bring in as well too. Yeah.
Very good. I find that specifically with hires, there's a couple of components to it. One is, like you said, it's the clarity. The more I tell clients, the more clear you are what you need for your business, and the
Yeah.
better you can like put that message forward to your team. And I tell them there's a few things that you need to bring to the table every time you meet with your team members, with your VA. Is one is purpose. What is the purpose behind what you're asking them to do? They need to understand that
Yeah.
this is what we're trying to achieve with this task, or with, this week's priorities.
Yeah.
What is its purpose? Like blanking out right now. I'm gonna start that section again. Sorry, I
Yeah.
never
That's okay.
like pause in between podcasts. We have purpose. You'll have like the clarity and the priority of tasks. So you're kind of telling them, hey, I'm going to give you, let's say, 5, 6, 10 tasks here, but these are the priorities. This is what we're trying to achieve this
Yeah.
week. You got to break it down. I find that a lot of business owners want everything done, all the
Yesterday.
time. And I'm like, unfortunately, there just doesn't work like that. You need to understand you have this person for 5, 6, or 10 hours a week.
Yeah.
They won't be able to do every single thing on your list, but they can do the top, 3 to 6 priorities that you have for that week. And then accountability is the next one. So now, next time you're meeting, needs to be documented. Next time you're meeting with them, you're going to go over that list and you're going to be like, okay, out of the priorities that we discussed last week, what got done? What areas of questions do you have? What points of clarity do we need to discuss? What problems do we need to solve that didn't work out or
Mhm.
felt differently than what we discussed originally? So I think those like that's a good setup for meeting with your VAs, having a lot of
Yeah.
clarity and having the accountability piece in
I
place.
think the accountability piece is huge because that's where most people fall down, right? That's where the communication breaks down. That's where, some people say, well, I love Slack or I love communicating in WhatsApp and stuff. I'm like that. Those are great systems, but they don't have any accountability pieces to them. So that's why I'm like project management all the way. Right. So, I take a look at, we've got high, medium, low tasks with my VA. If I think of a task that needs to be done, I mean, she did some fast work for me last week. I was like, drop everything else. This is the priority. Whoops. I didn't realize I was late on a deadline here. And so she's literally spent the next 5 hours just creating this list that I needed. And basically within Asana, we just drag and drop those tasks around and we sign a date. So she knows that if I've signed the end of the month to anything, it's just, let's get it done at some point this time. But if I sign it within like 72 hours, she knows, okay, boom, this is going to go up in the priority list. And then there's the accountability, right? Because there's the line item and she can check it off, or she can say, at Megan, this has been completed. Do you want anything further? And so it's things like project management software that's really going to help you with your efficiency and with your accountability, which is huge.
100%. CRMs are very, very important for your business, any business, every business. We use, as I shared with you before, we do use money.com.
Yeah.
Honestly, any of them, most of them will work for your business and will
Yeah.
work really well as long as you're using it. That's really all it takes.
And it takes
Is
a change in habit,
Yes.
total change in habit.
I have business owners, we have set up their whole CRMs. We get on a meeting, they're still using their notebooks. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, Monday's your notebook, okay? Just write it down Monday. This is where you would write things down. It's where you keep notes, for that reason, because we have
Mhm.
task lists that you choose once the priorities are set. You have the deadlines, and then the VA can go in there and do any updates. Hey, this happened, you know, for this task here, the business owner has full access to it, but also when they meet again, she pulls up the list and shows and goes through every single item and like, these are my updates. This is what happened. This is what got done. This is what,
Totally.
et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, it's so helpful. And yeah, like you said, the accountability piece is huge. The understanding what that person's going to be hired for in the first place is also huge. And then the other thing I find too is that a lot of times if you are having an employee or a contract worker that is not meeting the mark, they are behind, they're not pulling through the way you need them to be, etc. I always say, go back to yourself. Go back to yourself as the business owner. Have you put clear expectations in place? Have you held them accountable? And have you given them all the tools they need to execute their job? And a lot of times, unfortunately, the answer is no. They're like, you know what? No, because I've been so busy that I did not have time to accurately train them on that system. So that's on me.
I love that. I find that very often when something doesn't quite go their way, it's easy to blame exterior circumstances or blame the other.
Mm,
Or they're not doing their job. I tell them you can only control yourself. So instead of and not that there isn't anything to be talked about there, but look within first.
yeah.
What have I done? And I remember having this conversation with one of my VAs. I had asked her to do something, and I noticed week after week wasn't quite getting done. And when I brought it up, I said, listen, every time I'm giving you a task in my mind is kind of a checklist for
Mm-hmm.
it's getting done, it's being handled, but I notice it's not getting done. So what can I do to communicate better? Is there
Yeah.
a different way that we can like deliver the message or talk about this so we make sure it doesn't get like overlooked? And she's like, oh, okay, I hadn't realized how much of a priority was for you. So let me like adjust that. It was me taking ownership and responsibility of like, I probably didn't communicate well enough here. The other thing you said about the tools and resources, I added that as a question at the end of every meeting. I ask, like, once we set the
That's
priorities for the
great.
week, the question is, do I have all the tools and resources that I need to be successful? And that's a question for both of them. That's a question
Yeah.
for BA to think about, okay, yeah, is there anything that I need to accomplish this task? And that's a question for the business owner. Am I providing everything that I could be providing for it to be successful?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think going back to those tricky conversations and things, right? Like if it gets to a point where you are having those hard conversations, a lot of times, once you've done the reflection on yourself too, a lot of times are they actually taking accountability for themselves? And are they actually, you've questioned whether you've given them the tools and the resources and the leadership that they needed. Do they have everything they need? But when it comes time to like a performance review thing, none of this should be a surprise for them. right?
And it's
Like
not.
this person you're saying, right, who's been following through on tasks, week after week and things, right? When you bring that up in a performance review, this should not be a surprise to them. And if it is, then you have serious work to do in your communication around all of these items.
100%. Here's a couple other things that I've learned. One is you know pretty fast if it's a right fit or not. It doesn't take months. It doesn't take like years to find
18
out if the person's
chances.
it's very immediate. It's a very quick time frame that you will feel if it's a good fit or not. If it was a
Yep.
challenge in the communication or if it's just not the right fit. And that's okay. That's the whole process of hiring and training and making sure that you have the right team members for your team. And that's just easy enough to do. But second of all, like they always know. It's very common that you will go to like a letting go interview and they're ready to resign because it
Mhm.
it really goes both ways. They feel
Yeah.
the same thing. You're not feeling like they're feeling like it's not a good fit. They're not feeling useful or helpful, or they feel like they're in the wrong place. It's a little harder for them, I find, to voice that out than it is for the business owner. And again, that's kind of where the business owner should take a lot of responsibility to like
Yeah.
have those conversations and open up and ask them, how are you doing? How are you feeling on your tasks? Is there anything that you're feeling challenging here? Do you feel like you can do these tasks well? And I ask them all these questions just to make sure that we're on the same page with
Yeah.
expectations.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the thing is too, just giving them space to talk. What's working, what's not working.
Yeah, I do a lot of question asking.
Yeah.
Like, how do you feel about? I'll share a task with them. Like, this is what I'm thinking to do and how I want it done. Like, what do you think? Like, do you have
Yeah.
any suggestions? Like, what's your thoughts on this? Just gives them a space. Like, oh, okay, this is how I could do that. I want them to own, even though it's like my vision. I want them to own what they're doing and feel like they're collaborating. It's really a collaboration between the two. Let's talk about some of the other components of the business ownership as well. What are some of the things that you are able to set up with your clients and put in place when it comes to operations?
Yeah, we take a look at, like I said before, the investor journey, the client journey, the onboarding process, the standard operating procedures for all the different roles that you are building out, the long-term vision of the company, the strategic plan of marketing, what's going to happen next year, the seasonality in your business. You know, don't spend a huge marketing budget, in December if you're really looking for, summer rentals or something like that, right? Don't try and compete with the Christmas market when you're looking for a summer rental, etc. So we really take a look at the annual calendar of what's happening in your business and what stage of business are you in? Are you in the acquisition stage? Are you in the stabilization stage? Like, where are we looking and how can we grow? But a lot of times too, it's a challenge to say to people like, hey, let's stop for a sec here. And let's just take a look at stabilizing the business here, because let's be honest, in real estate, there's a million opportunities out there, right? There's a lot of things flying around. And a lot of us have kind of that shiny object syndrome where we're like, I want to do that, but I want to do that, and I want to do that, and I want to do that too. So a lot of times we were like, just pause for a minute so that we can really build that solid business foundation. We'll get to all of those, put them on a placeholder, put them on a mind map so that we can really know that, where the business is going to map out over the next 2 years. But like, as of right now, let's just really create those systems. Let's take a look at what's breaking down. Who do you need to help you? What is your, position for growth, and where are you looking to go? And then how can we just create those duplicatable tasks like over and over and over again?
I love that. Really like the repeatability of it. I'm like, this is what makes it a business is
Yeah.
let's write down step by step everything that needs to get done. Now let's create a system to make it repeatable. Anybody else can come in and repeat the same steps.
Yeah. Yeah. And I encourage systems early too. Like I have, people come to me and they say, well, when's the best time to, hire a VA agency like you or a consulting like me? Like, when's the best time? Like, the earlier, the better. Because if I can help you clean up 4 or 5 properties, I'd much rather do that than help you clean up 45 properties.
For sure. Unfortunately, a lot of us operate by pain.
Yeah.
Like, that's what motivates you. Once you're like in pain, like, I can't do this anymore, then you
Well,
start
the number
seeing
one
how.
thing I hear is overwhelm, right? Like, I'm so overwhelmed. There's so many moving tasks. I don't even know what to do tomorrow to help clear the clutter.
And that's what I was saying. Like when we first started working with a client, the first couple months is just putting out fires. We're cleaning up, we're getting like, figured
Yeah.
out, we're getting organized, just really simple. Like, and because they're overwhelmed, they need everything done and they're just putting out fires every day. To your points there about when should they really hire business consultants? I tell them, like, when I ask the question whether you should hire a first VA, I say, I think the only question you need to answer is, are you looking to scale? If you're looking to buy that next property, if you're looking to the next, you don't have an option. You have
Yeah.
to put in the systems and processes and hire somebody that has a strategy and knows how to start putting that in place for you, like yourself. That's so important because there's no other way. If you're done, if you're like, hey, I bought my properties, I'm managing them, I'm not looking to do anything else, like, okay, maybe you're fine, maybe you can handle what you have, you already got your own system in place. But
I
if
would
you
say
want
in
to
that
scale, you don't have.
situation, what does tax season look like for you? And if they're
What was
like,
that?
oh, it's a mess. It's an absolute mess. It takes me 6 months to try and get everything organized, right? And like, okay, well, even though you're not in the acquisition phase, you should probably do a little backtracking and get everything established so that you can just repeat it year after year. Totally fine to be in a hold position as long as you're not pulling your hair out every tax season because you're like, yeah, I don't know. What was that expense for? I have no clue. And scaling is different for everyone, right? Scaling could be 2 apartment complexes a year. It could be 20, right? Like scaling is, there's no right or wrong. But again, it's going to go back to like, how solid is this business foundation? If you go out for surgery tomorrow, is someone able to continue on? Are your investors going to get paid? Like that's a huge question every month. Huge. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because that's the
I
strength of
love
your
that.
business.
That's very true. Like, how are things right now? Like, we do a little health check, like a company health check to kind of
Love it.
engage, like, where are things at out of all these items? How many of them do you have like
Yeah.
in place? You know?
Yeah. That's a great question to ask.
So exciting. I think what you're bringing to the table has so much value.
Thank you.
It's so important. Do you extend to other businesses as well by any chance? Or are you really
I
specialize in
do.
real estate?
No, I do work with a lot of other industries as well. I work with immigration. I have worked in the past with health and wellness and fitness and pre and postnatal and high-end golf apparel and period underwear and lots of different cosmetics and aesthetics, lots of different companies without a doubt, lots of different industries. I had a great question not too long ago from someone that I was meeting with, and he said, what gives you the credentials to do this? And I thought, that's a great question. Well, I spent 12 years in the medical and pharmaceutical sales. And if you know anything about that industry, it's like running your own business under the umbrella of a large corporation. I left that position when I was managing the entire province in a large sales team. I spent my early part of my 20s in consulting, actually in cosmetics and aesthetics for lots of different retail locations. My degree is in entrepreneurship. I have a diploma in marketing management. So when you like wrap it all up, I'm like, okay, I feel like I've got octopus arms in other industries and stuff too, so I can absolutely consult in different areas too.
Yeah, I find that experience trumps a degree. Not that that's,
Oh
not saying
yeah,
there's no relevancy to degrees, but at the end of the day, like it's honestly I learned by doing it. I don't have there's no other way. Everything I
totally.
just shared with you was just my
Experience.
learnings over the last, 2 years of working and building businesses. There's no I wouldn't have known that if I had gone, per se. Like it's the experience makes a massive
Even
difference.
when you come out of university with a business degree, you don't know all these things. Like like the textbook stuff, but you don't understand how to actually take a look at a sales territory on an annual base and look for seasonal changes and manage an overall marketing budget and all of those things. So yeah, it is literally experience. I mean, there is such a depth of knowledge in the real estate industry that anyone coming in today's date, like you're so lucky. I had a discovery call with someone this morning just looking to start their real estate investing journey. And I paired them up with someone who was very well versed in real estate investing. And so it was just like a match made in heaven based on their values and things. But there is just so much experience out there that it's an amazing industry to be a part of because the learning is ongoing forever.
100%. I love that. Thank you so much, Megan. I do have one last question for
Yeah,
you. If you had the world's attention for 30 seconds, what message would you share?
that kind of gives me chills actually. I would say stop being so fearful of the judgment of others and stop living your dreams for other people and what society thinks you need. I actually had urgent open heart surgery 9 years ago, and it allowed me to walk away from a lot of fear because the fear of leaving corporate world is like crazy. You think you've got it all with all the car and the perks and things like that. But I realized how much we all live in fear of the unknown. And in actual fact, you control your destiny 100%.
That's very impactful to what I said earlier. Often we operate out of, fear or out of, negative impact. Sometimes it takes something like that to make a change because you're operating in fear. So I love that message.
And I don't even think I knew. I looking back, I was living the dream. I was living exactly doing everything I wanted to at my dream job, everything. But I realized what I was like able to free myself from after that, and didn't have to, I could create this life that I wanted to. Same thing that you talk about a lot, is creating the life that you really are, desiring to live. And it was actually at a book club meeting with my current past job, and we were talking about, they said, what would you do if you weren't afraid? I was like, invest in more real estate and travel more. Here we are.
Congratulations on
Thank
that
you.
realization and creating that life. Thank you so much again. How can
Yeah,
people
you're
reach out
welcome.
to you?
I'm pretty active on Instagram. It's at Meghan Hubner, Meghan, last name Hubner. I'm also on LinkedIn. I have a website, meghanhubner.com. You can find me there as well. You can book a consult there as well. But yeah, you pretty much find me on Instagram for the most part.
Reach out to Megan, get a consultation with her, find out more what she does. Really incredible service and value. So I thank you for that.
You're
Everybody
welcome.
needs a business consultant that can help you get organized and structured. It's always a pleasure talking to you. I'm sure we'll be in touch
Likewise.
very soon.
Yeah, I like it.
Thank
Have a
you.
great day, you guys.